That's Dr. Maysa Ayoub, the reason hundreds of humanitarian workers, policymakers, and researchers fly into Cairo every year to rethink how we protect displaced people. Dr. Ayoub holds a bachelor's degree in economics from Cairo University, a master's degree in sociology from the American University in Cairo, and a PhD from the Faculty of Economics and Political Science at Cairo University, where her research focused on Euro-Mediterranean studies. Her dissertation explored the complex relationship between migration policies, public opinion, and media narratives. Today, Dr. Maysa Ayoub is a leading political sociologist specializing in international migration, border governance, and refugee rights across the global south. She is an assistant professor of public policy and international migration and the former associate director of the Center for Migration and Refugee Studies at the American University in Cairo. And I would like to thank SunMed Agency for sponsoring today's production and Artline for sponsoring the very studio we are recording in. Thank you. I'm your host Hassan and welcome to the Cairo Cable. Hello, welcome back to the Cairo Cable for our second episode today here with Dr. Maysa Ayoub. Hello, doctor. How are you today?
Hi Hassan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Please tell us about yourself.
Okay, my name is Maysa Ayoub. I'm an assistant professor of public policy and international migration at the American University in Cairo.
Okay, so let's dive into the questions. Okay, now, Dr. Ayoub, a lot of teenagers see chaotic news clips about border crisis on TikTok and Instagram. And now the vocabulary gets confusing. So, in plain English, how would you see the actual difference between a migrant and a refugee? And why should a teenager listening to today's episode really care about that difference?
Okay, to understand the difference between a migrant and a refugee, we have to know that there are different reasons for why people move. And there are basically, in the literature, we differentiate between two different type of movement or two different type of migration. On one hand, there are people who move because they decide they want to move, because they made the choice of movement, either because they want to work in another country, they want to study in another country, or they want to join a family member in another country. This kind of movement that is based on a choice is called voluntary migration. However, there is another kind or other people who don't have the choice. They didn't want to move, but they were forced to move. And these we call them forced migrant. Now, how can someone be forced to move? Could be wars and conflict. For example, now we have many Sudanese in Egypt who were forced to come to Egypt because of the war in Sudan that started in 2023. Or, for example, when the civil conflict in Syria pushed many out of Syria. Now, a forced migrant, when a person is forced to leave his country and he go to another country, a host country, he has to approach the authority and seek protection, what we call seeking asylum. So he becomes an asylum seeker. If his claim or his request for protection is approved, then he becomes a refugee. So a refugee is someone who was forced to leave his country of origin and applied for protection in the host country and got it. So you see, we have different group of people, different categories of migrant with different legal rights. So why it's important for a young man like you to know the difference is that you understand that those who you see in the street are not all the same. They are different. Some of them have specific right that was granted to them by the Egyptian state. Others are coming because they have work permit, because they have visas that allow them to study in Egypt or to work in Egypt, and others who are staying in irregular way or illegal way. So it's important to understand that they are not all the same. Mm-hmm. And there are different rights attached to each one of them.
Does this affect them on their daily lives, these differentiations in rights?
Of course. It affects how they are able to live their life. It affects for example, migrants who came here with work permits. Many of them are expat, okay? These are
Sorry, can you please define the word expat? Some viewers might not understand
it. Okay, So people tend to, for example, if you are in an international school,
Yes.
you have teachers who are coming from abroad.
Yes.
Okay, these are migrants.
Mm-hmm.
We forget they are migrants, but they are expat. They are coming. We call them expat, but in reality they are migrant. But they are coming with official work permit. They are paid well, and they
With
can
official purpose.
official purposes, and they are paid well, so they don't have a problem in accessing. They don't need to access public services in Egypt, which is for free. They don't need to access public education for their
So they
children.
don't really affect the country.
They don't affect the country. They benefit the country because they work and they spend their money in the country. Okay? But so are the other type of migrants. But they don't affect the country in terms of they don't require the country to give them services.
Yes.
They can pay for their own services. So they can put their children in private schools, or they can access private medical care. But other people who do not have this capacity will put pressure on the
Egyptian public services.
Egyptian public services. Some of them have the right to do so because they are refugees. Others don't.
Which are illegal.
And that's why it makes it more challenging for them.
Yes. Well, Doctor, Egypt currently hosts millions of refugees and migrants from across our region. And from your 15 years of research, what are the biggest invisible challenges that these migrants face in Egypt?
Okay, so the main challenge, there are so many challenges. And as I explained, because many of them are particularly, again, here the differentiation between a migrant and refugee is important. Because those who face serious challenges are those who are forced to migrate, forced migrant, or migrant that are unable, they are coming unofficially in Egypt and they are working in the informal sector. These face a lot of challenges, but as I explained, the other kind of migrant don't because they have their own means. So what challenges do they face? The basic challenge is access to services, particularly healthcare and education. So for example, according to the Egyptian law, refugees, registered refugees can access public health care facilities, but only refugees. All other migrants cannot. So if they can't afford to pay for private services, then this is a big challenge. Also refugees, although they have access to public healthcare facilities, in reality, many of the time they are unable to access such right. Why? Because Egypt is a country that is suffering from a lot of economic problem, and there is a lot of pressure on its already public services. So even Egyptians, they have difficulty accessing public health care. So
if it's hard for Egyptians, it would even be harder on migrants.
That's exactly. The same is with education. Refugees can access public primary schools, but only those who can speak Arabic. So only Sudanese and Syrians, basically, or Yemenis.
So someone from Chad, for example, would not be able to.
No. And even again, those who Sudanese, they can access Egyptian public school, but again, you know how Egyptian public school are. They are overcrowded, overstretched. So in reality, they don't, and they rely on their own schooling. They have like informal schools. Some even don't attend these informal schools. So we're talking about a big generation, because many of them are young or uneducated. So this is a serious challenge. Another serious challenge is access to employment and access to income-generating activities, because in Egypt, no one can work without a work permit. If you are a foreigner, you cannot work without a work permit. So even refugees, although they have access to basic services, they cannot work unless they get a work permit. And to get a work permit is not easy, because you need to
have certain skills and degrees.
Exactly, and these skills must not be met by the Egyptian people. So because they want to protect the Egyptian local market. So if you have skills that is similar to those of the most Egyptian, then you won't be able to get a work permit. And it's costly, because you need to find an employer who's willing to pay for the cost of the work permit. So the end result is that they all work in the informal sector. You see them, for example, working as nannies in houses or as domestic workers, working as drivers, selling things in the street, which again, we have to put it in the context of Egypt, because Egypt also, many Egyptians are working in the informal sector. But the thing is, the informal sector has its own vulnerability, because an informal worker might not be offered a good job. His contract might end at any time. There is no protection.
There's no stability
There is no
in becoming an
stability.
informal worker.
Exactly. And this is with regard to Egyptians. So you can imagine if they are a foreigner, it becomes even more, they are more vulnerable. So that's another challenge. Another challenge that is very serious also is the problem of documentation, because the way they fled their country, many of them, they fled very quickly and they didn't have a chance to bring with them certain documentation. Sometimes they didn't get their
Passport.
sometimes they don't even have a passport, because they don't get their passport because they don't come here in an irregular way. They come through the desert, or they don't have their marriage certificates, or they don't have their education certificates, or they don't have even the birth certificates of their children. Without any documents, they have no legal status in Egypt. So, for example, even those who come they have the children born in Egypt, they cannot, if they don't have a marriage certificate, they cannot register their children. If they don't have a passport, they cannot register their children. So the children end up being what you call stateless, without any citizenship.
So they wouldn't be able to even get a citizenship from their official country, Sudan.
Unless they go back.
But as far as I believe, there is a broken government over there.
Exactly. That's
So-
why. And the thing is, that's a good point. It depends. Some of them have fled Sudan because they are worried from the government, so they cannot approach the embassy. Because what you're saying is that normally, if you didn't let your country, you just left your country out of a choice, you can go to your embassy and get the birth certificate, but they cannot do that.
They might get arrested for desertification.
Exactly. Yeah. And or because there is a collapse, the government is collapsed.
Are the embassies of Sudan currently working properly, or such countries as is?
Not really. It's over. From what we hear from the refugees, when they approach their embassy, it's not easy. Some of them, they are afraid to approach their embassy. Others, because in Sudan there are a lot of ethnic conflicts, so some people are against the government, so they won't be able. Exactly. So they won't be able to approach the embassy. But those who approach, they said the embassy is overwhelmed by a number of people who are asking for services, so they don't usually get the help they need. So these are basically the challenge. Another challenge that is recently taking place is the fact that, in April, Sudanese have always come to Egypt, because Egypt or Sudan are bordering countries, but never in this amount of.
I believe there's a reported number of 13 million.
The numbers are very difficult to determine, but what the government is saying, and other international organizations also support that, is that there is around 9 million refugees in Egypt, not only Sudanese, different group of refugees. But in their calculation, they are also including the migrant, not only refugees. So they are saying there are 9 million migrants or foreigners, exactly, 9 million foreigners. To know among them who is refugee, who is not a refugee, we only rely on the figure of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, and according to UNHCR, there is almost 1 million registered refugees. The vast majority among them are Sudanese, 800,000 Sudanese and around 200 or other nationality. But of course, this is not the only figure, because not everyone registered with UNHCR. So we don't know exactly what's the number, but
we never calculate.
We never calculate it, but to be calculated, it needs rigorous scientific research that is not done.
Do you believe there are more legal refugees in Egypt than illegal, or the other way around?
I think the other way around.
Illegal are more than legal?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the country would benefit more from this or would be hurt more than this?
Okay, so definitely it puts a lot of pressure on the government because I was telling you 10 years ago, for example, when a large number of Syrians moved to Germany, and Germany is a strong economy, they had problems. So you can imagine when a large number come to Egypt. Of
And
course,
Egypt already has a
already
harsh economy.
exactly, because they put pressure on the public services, they put pressure on the accommodation, etc. So yes, definitely it is something that it's a lot of pressure on the government.
We all know, or as introduced to our viewers, you have a PhD in political science, specializing in Euro-Mediterranean issues, correct?
Exactly.
Now, how do European border policies affect us here in North Africa? And how can countries actually cooperate on human rights rather than just building walls on borders?
Okay. So yes, now there is in Europe there is a lot what we call securitization. So the issue of migration became sectorized, meaning that it only focused on security. And the one way of dealing with this, they engage in a policies that is known as externalization policies. What does externalization mean? That they are externalizing migration policy to other countries. So instead of controlling, so they are not only controlling the borders, building more walls, more security on the borders, but they are also externalizing this to other countries, meaning that they go into agreement with countries like Egypt, with countries like Tunisia, even with Libya, to do what? To ask these countries like Egypt to control its border more so that migrants do not leave Egypt. So this
That
is
is
what,
why I've heard that there was a loan given to Egypt by the European Union
yes,
to take care of the migrants here.
exactly. This aid to Egypt is, it's not a loan, it's aid. The aid to Egypt is include a lot of many things, but the biggest portion is to control the borders. It has other component, of course, but the biggest portion is to control the border. And this is the problem. How it impacts us? It impacts us because the situation in Sudan or in the neighboring country did not get better. So this means that if people cannot move to Europe and cannot go back to their countries of origin, that they are stuck in Egypt. So it means that the pressure on
Egypt will
Egypt will
stay as
continue,
is.
will stay as is. So cooperation is important, and we refer to it as responsibility sharing, because now what's happening in other countries, usually when a conflict happen in a country, what is expected and what has usually happened is that the people fleeing this conflict will go to the neighboring country. So that's why Sudanese come to Egypt.
It's the easiest route.
Exactly. And Syrians went to Jordan and Lebanon and Turkey. Some Syrians come to Egypt, but the vast majority went to Turkey and Lebanon. So usually they go to the bordering countries. So this means that the bordering countries are the countries that will bear the largest portion, will bear the responsibility for something that they didn't do. So that's why there is talk in the international community that there should be a responsibility sharing. Europe and the United States and the global north should share the responsibilities with the global south countries that are hosting a lot of refugees. How they would share the responsibility, there are so many ways. Not all of it is only border control, but the problem is, unfortunately, that the focus is on border management. But there are other ways, like, for example, they can increase resettlement slots. What does resettlement mean? Resettlement means that a country in the global north, like, and Canada does that mostly, will say, as a mean of responsibility sharing, I will take this number of refugees from Egypt to relieve Egypt from the burden. The problem is that the resettlement quota, they have resettlement quota. So like every country has a quota. Canada, England, the United States. The United States was the country that was providing the largest quota. But unfortunately, when Trump came, he reduced the resettlement slots massively. And Europe is not providing a lot of resettlement slots.
I believe there's already a huge crisis occurring in the United States with ICE attacking all people, mostly even its citizens.
Exactly. So the policies of Trump has really caused a lot of disturbance.
On the global scale.
Yeah, on a global scale, of course. And so one way is to go back to the resettlement slots, or at least Europe to increase its resettlement slot. Another way is to provide more development aid to the countries that are hosting refugees to help them provide proper services.
Dr. Ayoub, now you are the former associate director of a major research center at the AUC and assistant professor of public policy and international migration. Now, you started exactly where our listeners are right now. Did you always know that you were going to enter global human rights, or what was the turning point that got you to this direction?
When I was your age, no, I didn't know what I want to do. I was aware that what I like. So I from a very early age, I knew that I like to teach, and that's why I volunteered in a school when I was my high school. I volunteered to assist with primaries with the primary teacher, but I wasn't sure. I know that I felt I was passionate about teaching, but I wasn't aware yet. I didn't have the awareness that I should pursue this as my career.
You didn't know what you wanted to teach.
Exactly, and I didn't know what I wanted to teach. So I majored in economics when I was undergrad.
In Cairo University.
Cairo University. And following graduation, I worked in an oil company.
What was it?
It's an Italian company called Ayoub, oil producing company. It's in Muhandisin. It's still there. Maybe when I took this position, and it was an admin position because I was graduating from economics, so I worked in a admin, finance admin. It wasn't really finance; it was mostly admin. So I knew. When I did that, I knew what I don't like, what I didn't like. So I knew that this working in this environment is not really what I want. So that's why when I did my master degree, I decided to change discipline. And I remember that I got the AUC Catholic, and I looked at all the majors, and I was very much attracted to sociology, and this is the turning point in my life.
Many viewers wouldn't know exactly what you mean by sociology. Can you explain what it is about?
Sociology is the major of studying society, interaction between people, movement by people. So it is politics is you study the
leadership.
The leadership, exactly. But sociology is from you study the grassroots.
People itself. Now, for students who dream of studying international relations, political science, or any relevant majors at a top global university like the AUC, what do you think are academic habits they should have, or certain mindsets that helped you excel the most during your PhD journey or your journey to where you are now?
When I was doing my MA, what I really liked, what really helped me is that I always had, sociology make you think about things that you take for granted, things that you believe that they are there, but then you realize that they are actually socially constructed. So it opened up my mind to be inquisitive, not to take things for granted, to try to understand more. So that's a skill I think students should have, to always have a passion to learn something new, to ask, not to hesitate to ask, not to be too shy to ask. That's very important, because now when I teach students, I feel that some of them are really excellent students when they write, but they don't have this ability.
They're scared to ask.
And it's important to ask. And then in my field, particularly when it comes to research, to understand that it's a long process and you need to build your skill and it will take time and you don't give up. Because in research, I write something, I do field work about a certain topic, and then it is published maybe a year or two later. So it's a long process, so you have to have the patience and the understanding that in order to succeed, you need time. And it comes, skills develop as you grow. So now what worries me about the younger generation, that they are in a hurry and they think that if they don't know, if they, for example, get anxious when they do presentation, for example, that's the end of it. But it's not. It gets better.
Now, as young people, we usually get our information through social media algorithms and news outlets on Google and such. Okay. Now, what is one piece of advice you would want to give to Gen Z to help spot biased news or propaganda put by governments or groups of people?
It's a really an issue now, because I can see on the social media that there are a lot of propaganda and fake news. I mean, you have to use your you have to try to get the news yourself, like what you're doing now. What you're doing, you decided that you want to learn about different subject, so you get the expert in this subject and they inform you, and then you can take it from here to research more. So you didn't, what made you interested? I would ask you, what made you interested to understand what's going on with refugees and migrants, and what made you interested?
Personally, because I see that there is huge undereducation in this field by many people my age and Gen Z. So I feel like this is a chance to give people of my generation more info about this topic, as most people are really confused. Most people think migrants and refugees are the same exact thing. So I thought this is an opportunity for most people my
So
age to learn about it.
exactly. So more and more people should be like you. So when you see refugees or see a lot of migrant, and you see in the street, and then you see the propaganda in the media, you don't take it
I shouldn't
as
take.
given. You try to find out who is a refugee, who is a migrant. You try to seek information. So this is the advice I would give Gen Z, is to, when they are confronted by news that are sometimes contradictory, and you don't know what is fake and what is
Real.
not, you try to search and to trust, and to only trust trusted sources. You don't just get the information
From
from any.
TikTok,
Exactly.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay, now for the final question of the Cairo Cable, obviously you should know that this is a signature question that we ask all our guests. If you could give one singular piece of advice to any young listener listening right now, what would it be? And how would you tell these listeners to use this piece of advice?
As I mentioned before, what I see that now the Gen Z are so obsessed by this, by the new technology and the social media, and they think that life is easy, and they think that and they are in a hurry. My advice is that they should calm down. They don't they don't look at other people, but they look at themselves. What is important is how I am today, and what you compare yourself today with yourself yesterday, but you don't compare yourself to others. So what you need to know to do is to progress. You progress, but you don't look at other people what they are doing, but because people are different, and everyone develop and progress differently. So they need to be patient. They need to focus on their own progress and to focus on their own skills. It's very important to build your skill, to know what you want, to build the skill for this path, and to focus on to improving yourself, and not bother but by what other people are doing.
That is great advice. Thank you very much. Obviously, I would like to thank you for coming today and helping us know more about the difference between migrants and refugees and international migrations in general. And I hope our listeners will be very benefited from this.
I hope so. I hope also our listener will benefit from this conversation. We like people to be introduced to this important field, and I would like to thank you so much for being so ambitious and so organized and so determined to do something good. And I wish you all the best in your university life and to finish your school.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you very much for watching the second episode of the Cairo Cable with Dr. Maysa Ayoub. If you found today's conversation interesting, you should check our previous episode with Dr. Wael Mamdouh. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and check our social media accounts TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you very much for watching and see you for the next one.